Let's get started. All right, just want to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded. All right.
Got anybody in
And
yet?
we have two, three. Keep it coming. We'll give everybody just a couple of minutes as normal. Hope everybody's had a good week so far. It's only Monday and Tuesday, so and if it hasn't been good so far, hopefully it'll turn around because we still got time. Right?
I'm still recovering from the weekend.
You know, it was a good weekend for me. Um, so yeah.
We were at the Conscious Life Expo and we had a booth and it was insane packed like all weekend. It was a madhouse.
Really,
It
that's
was really
fantastic.
good. It was awesome. But I lost my voice. It barely came back kind of midday today, which is good.
Perfect. You
Uh,
sound normal. You
Sound
sound
normal?
normal. I see you got a haircut. Haircut looks good.
Actually, I didn't get a haircut.
What? Really?
I need a haircut.
It looks good. Actually, you may just want to just maybe the trim on the sides, man. I like the top.
Yeah, it's a little bit longer. I don't like it
Yeah.
when it gets all shaggy on the sides though.
I don't either. I don't like it like crawling down over my ears.
I like the
I can
high
deal with some stuff up here, but I don't know what it is.
I like the high and tight.
My dad, for the longest time, just had the military almost like crew cut. As he got older, his hair started to thin. And then when he was about 70 years old, he saw this older dude with a ponytail. Tells my mom, I'm not cutting my hair no more. Man was true to his word. Had a ponytail. That's yeah. At the end, he would have it braided. It was not quite the middle of his back, but he was trying.
Nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But it was just so weird to see because all my life he was, clean cut, you know. And even as, his hair got a little thinner, but never still had a full head of hair. He went with a little bit more, less of the height, but it was still didn't have anything on the ears. It was always trimmed and groomed on the edges. So,
Hmm.
yeah. All right.
So are you
So
are you gonna set it so that we can see all the windows of everybody
we'll
up
do
there?
that. We'll do that as well. I was going to wait for everyone to kind of get in and then start. I'll start doing my thing on that end.
I actually got a nice PowerPoint for y'all today, so you don't just have to look at my ugly mug the whole time.
What are you talking about? I think we're good looking mugs. Come on now. I've seen
Well, my
worse.
well, my mug anyway.
All right. I was going to say, I've seen worse. Come on now. All right. I'm going to go ahead and pop everybody up. So we're just going to you'll just have your tiles or your name tag. If you happen to have a photo, it will show that.
Cool, cool.
And I will be able to go ahead and get everybody. If you do want to talk, if you do, I'll make sure that I also do the chat. Because it is a webinar style, it doesn't always leave if I unmute you guys unmuted. So if
All
you,
right, before we begin, let's please understand that everything discussed here today is strictly for research and educational purposes only. Any compounds, peptides, protocols, or dosing info mentioned are intended for research context only and are not medical advice. These substances are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Nothing shared in this discussion should be interpreted as a recommendation for personal use. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional before making any health-related decisions. All right, now we got the FDA BS out of the way.
yeah, so we
So
already have a question.
today, Lauren's asking if we can open up the chat.
I just did. Go ahead and
Okay.
give it a try for me, please.
It says that it's disabled.
Hmm, hold on a second. It should be open for everyone. Could you can you give that another try?
There we go. Yep,
All
it's on
right.
now. Thank you.
No problem.
Cool, cool. All right, well, I'm going to put this nifty little PowerPoint presentation up on the screen. And I'm going to share my screen.
3, 2, 1.
Maybe.
Try one more time.
1 second. It's having me change my privacy settings, I think.
Could be.
For sharing. I think I have to leave the webinar and come back, so I'll be right back, all right?
Okay. Hello. Hello. And okay.
All right, I'm back. Let me share this PowerPoint.
There we go. If you go to the slideshow, it will put it up as a full window.
Where's that at? At the
Uh,
slideshow.
Towards the top, it should say right there about the CVC transition, animation, slideshow. Right at the keep going over to the right, right
Ah,
there.
here we go. Okay.
And play from the beginning.
Okay, cool.
There we go. And just your tab arrows will allow you to go ahead and cycle through.
Cool, cool. All right, so tonight we're talking about DSIP or delta sleep inducing peptide. So the voice of the conversation tonight is going to be all about how there's a misconception about this particular peptide that all it is just a sleep-inducing peptide. And we're going to go through a whole bunch of other things, which it is, and realize that it's more of just a downstream effect. We're gonna reframe what DSIP actually is. So, you hear most people hear delta sleep inducing peptide and they immediately assume it's just a sleep aid. But the
Mhm.
full picture is that the sleep improvement is actually a downstream effect of um, other things happening with DSIP.
You could almost call it a side effect.
Yeah, they're basically it's a side effect of all the other things going on. So DSIP is better understood as a regulator of a stress recovery axis, and it acts on the central neuroendocrine level. When stress signaling normalizes, sleep improves naturally. So let's see, how do I go to the next slide? All right, yeah. So the big marketing mistake here is DSIP. It's only for sleep. Take it before bed, helps you fall asleep. Now, all of those things are definitely true, and I use it. Many other people use it for that, and do take it in the evening because it does kind of create a sedative effect, but it doesn't force sedation like a drug. When sleep improves, it improves as that downstream effect of biological rhythm restoration, as we were talking about. So it doesn't function like melatonin, GABA, or a sedative. It doesn't really knock you out. Um, you can think of it more as like it's normalizing the stress signaling, um, and not because of like a sedation, like a drug or like melatonin or like GABA would do, like a high dose of GABA. So what DSIP, sorry, let me move this out of the way so I can actually see these slides here. Oops. Uh-oh, what's going on now? Can you guys still see the slides?
Yep, size look good.
Okay. Sorry, my thing is going all wackadoo.
It's going a little wonky on you.
Okay.
You can use the your arrows. The
Okay.
arrow to the right should also advance the slide for you as well.
All right. So what DSIP actually is, DSIP is an endogenous peptide. It acts primarily on the hypothalamic level, and it influences the HPA axis, which is the system that controls cortisol, stress adaptation, and circadian rhythm. So the mechanism of action is actually central modulation of stress signaling pathways. Again, not sedation like caused by a drug. So the system that governs cortisol, stress adaptation, and circadian rhythm is actually what DSIP is working on, and the sleep just so happens to come because of all of these other cascading effects. So it is an endogenous neuropeptide, meaning it's naturally occurring peptide produced in the body. It's not a synthetic drug compound, although when you are taking it as a peptide, you are taking a synthesized form of it. It acts on the centrally on the hypothalamus and the brain's control center for homeostasis. It's an HPA axis modulator, meaning it regulates the stress response system rather than just forcing sleep onset. And it's a non-opioid mechanism, so it's not going to create um, dependence. Like
Yeah.
when you take, let's say, um, even if you're just taking like a sleep aid like melatonin, once you
Hmm.
start taking melatonin and you're like, oh, I slept really good last night, I took the melatonin, having a hard time sleeping tonight, I'm going to take it again, and you take it night after night after night. After a certain amount of time, your body becomes basically dependent on it and your body stops producing its own.
Yes.
And this doesn't work that way. So the DSIP doesn't create any sort of dependence. It doesn't work through any opioid receptors at all, and it definitely helps avoid the dependency risks. So what is the HPA axis that we were just talking about? That's the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, and that's the master stress regulation system. Chronic activation leads to systemic dysregulation, which DSIP helps modulate. So you have cortisol regulation, you have a stress response, recovery signaling, and circadian rhythm, and this works on all of those. So it it sort of acts when HPA axis is chronically activated, we see elevated cortisol and poor recovery, fragmented sleep, and systemic dominance, or sorry, sympathetic dominance. The DSIP helps modulate this axis and restores rhythm rather than shutting it down. So what it's doing is it's acting in an endogenous manner to actually just bring your body back to a normal rhythm and what we would call homeostasis or balance, right? So it acts upstream at the hypothalamus level first, um, which regulates cortisol through the pituitary gland and the adrenal glands. So um, the stress dysregulation. So many people today are living in chronic sympathetic overdrive.
Oh my God.
Everybody, right? Who isn't? So evening cortisol stays elevated, which blocks the slow wave sleep, which is the delta sleep pattern, right? So that leads to the classic wired but tired state. Like you're just so tired and you feel like you need to sleep, yet you're wired and you can't seem to actually lay in bed and turn it off and go to sleep. So you're exhausted, but you're unable to fully relax. So the DSIP works upstream, addressing the dysregulation rather than masking symptoms. So when the evening cortisol remains high, when it should drop, physically preventing the onset of deep restorative sleep, you have fragmented sleep. So frequent nighttime waking, inability to reach the slow wave delta sleep stages, and you get this from overtraining symptoms, persistent soreness, reduced performance, lack of motivation, despite adequate rest time. So that tends to bring that classic wired but tired, adrenal dysregulation, exhaustion paired with nervous system alertness.
Yeah.
So sleep is the downstream effect. So this is what we were talking about. Yes, it is a sleep aid, but this is sort of a downstream effect of all these other things that we're talking about. So, uh, when physiology stabilizes, slow wave sleep improves. Delta sleep becomes deeper and more restorative. Night waking decreases, And again, it's not forced sedation. It's sort of like a biological return to balance, if you will. Um, it's not forcing sedation like a drug or like taking even melatonin, which obviously is an endogenous thing in your body as well. But the melatonin is working on those, what do we call them? What did we
Okay.
just say a minute ago? On the opioid mechanism. So we're not working on the opioid mechanisms at all. So this downstream effect of delta sleep improving, of the slow wave sleep, it increases the duration and quality of the slow wave sleep, restorative phase critical for physical recovery and hormonal balance. So another effect of this is going to be sort of a balancing or homeostasis of hormones. So we talk about all the different systems that DSIP is going to be working on, not just improving your cortisol levels and allowing you to actually reach that relaxative restorative sleep, but it's raising the arousal threshold, preventing light noise or minor disturbances from waking you up, and it's reducing fragmentation. It's minimizing the nighttime awakenings, promoting continuous unbroken sleep cycles. So it's just allowing you to get into that state where you're not halfway alert, you're not halfway awake, where any little thing, a pin drops or a bug flies by and you wake up. This is putting you into a sleep that is going to um, keep you there rather than having many nighttime wake ups. So the autonomic nervous system balance. This is actually really important. So the the delta sleep inducing peptide appears to support parasympathetic dominance when appropriate. So that means that less nervous system hyperactivity,
Mhm.
and people often describe feeling calmer, steadier, but not groggy. So that distinction is important. So it's not like a groggy sleep. It's just you feel calmer and more steady. And this doesn't create any kind of grogginess in the morning when you wake up either from that sleep. It's a wake and go type of a situation. So it's facilitating that shift from the sympathetic dominance to the parasympathetic recovery, which reduces the nervous system hyperactivity, improves overall stress tolerance without forced sedation. So the sympathetic is what's reducing the fight or flight signaling, and the parasympathetic is what's enhancing rest and digest capacity, right?
And
And
recovery.
that's what is the most important is really having that return to the parasympathetic, right? So it's improving the tone of both of those and giving balance between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic and allowing that rest and digest capacity. So again, it's not just the restorative sleep that's happening, but it's all of the other things that are happening in that right rest and digest. So again, hormonal balance. We talk about other peptides that help regulate your sleep patterns. Um, Especially the hormonal ones that also work in the um, like hormone balance, like CJC 1295 and ipamorelin and tesamorelin. When you're taking those are working on your growth hormone. So again, we're talking about hormone balance here. And during that time at night is when we actually have that largest natural growth hormone pulse between 10 and midnight. And so if we can actually reach sleep during that time, that's even stronger. So when you're pairing other peptides such as the GHRHs, the GHRPs, the growth hormone releasing peptides and hormones, it's very good to pair with something like DSIP because when you get into that actual rest and repair state, and it's not just happening because you've taken that peptide, but you're actually getting that. We talk about taking those between 9 and 10 to link up with that 10 to midnight growth hormone pulse as well. So when we really get into the parasympathetic during that time and we reach that rest and digest capacity at full is when we take advantage of those other peptides in full as well. by improving that tone. And
I
that's,
had a quick question
uh-huh.
from, hold on, let me see who exactly is it from, RM, Randy. And he asked a question about panic attacks at night while sleeping. Um, is that a feature of DSIP? I
It
don't.
is actually.
Okay.
So panic attacks at night often happen because of um, an overactive mind. You're not reaching that what we call that rest and digest stage. You're not reaching that point where you're in the parasympathetic, or you could say the autonomic nervous system is forward.
Mhm.
You're in you're more straight in the nervous system, and your nervous system is overactive. So when we can get out of that state, it's the mind shuts off. And that's one of the reasons we can actually get to that rest and digest capacity, is because the mind isn't the nervous system isn't out front, but the autonomic nervous system is out front, which means the nervous system is now resting and it's kind of set back behind. So absolutely this can help with that. It's actually helped me much with that. Um, the other thing that can really help with that, another peptide that is really good paired, especially in the evening time with the DSIP, is Solank. And Solank is
Mhm.
hugely anxiolytic, meaning it is very anti-anxiety, and it really helps kind of like turn down that overactive mind and that inability to like shut it off and like keep thinking about things and panicking about them, and you can't ever get to um that sort of rest and restore state. So those two are actually very well paired at night together. Did that answer that question? I think that answers that question. So, neuroprotection and brain resilience. So, under chronic stress, the brain becomes hyper excitable, and the DSIP may help stabilize neuronal firing patterns and reduce stress-related strain. So, this is actually in direct answer to that question as well. So, this contributes to overall resiliency and improved recovery capacity. So when you wake up in the morning after being in that state properly, like the body should be every night during rest, the brain actually functions better the next day. So so it modulates excitability, it dampens the excessive neuronal firing to prevent overstimulation. It reduces strain by mitigating the damaging effects of chronic stress on hormones and on brain tissue, and enhances the central nervous system's ability to maintain homeostasis. When the homeostasis that we're really talking about there is that parasympathetic sympathetic balance, right? So one isn't too far out in front of the other one. And when we have that balance is when we get to that autonomic nervous system state. When we're in that autonomic nervous system state during the day, we oftentimes deem that as the flow state, right? When the mind isn't overactive, but we're just like really focused on one thing that we're doing, and you're not like overthinking 19 things at once, and you're just sort of like in a focus and a flow. We tend to call that the flow state, but that's really when the autonomic nervous system is sort of a little bit out front, which happens in that balance. So pain modulation. So this delta sleep inducing peptide actually has analgesic properties, believe it or not. So uh, one under discussed aspect of it is the pain modulation. So it appears to reduce stress amplified pain without acting on opioid receptors. This makes it especially interesting in overtraining and chronic stress scenarios. So this is for you, Josh, if you're still on the call, Mr. Overtrainer. Um, so this can really help when we get in those modes of, hey, I'm training for a show, or I'm training for a marathon, or an Ironman or something like that physically, and we're really overstressing the body, and we can get to that overstressed point where you feel like you need to rest, and you rest, but you're not actually getting rest because, again, that autonomic nervous system is never coming forward, and you're always in the nervous system like cranked up. kind of point. So this actually, which causes more pain. So the specifically hyperalgesia caused by chronic stress and nervous system amplification, right? So central sensitization may dampen central sensitization, resetting the pain threshold and in the central nervous system. So this is exactly what we're talking about. You become over sensitized to the pain that you get from either injuries or from like over gym training and things like that, and it can't turn off. So having that central sensitization reset actually brings your pain threshold down, or actually brings your pain threshold up because you're not sensing it as much, right? You're not as overstimulated in the sensory of that. So this is ideal for overtraining states where systemic inflammation and stress heighten pain sensitivity. So I know all about this, especially from road cycling. Road cycling causes, when people get into this intensely and you're riding, 200 plus miles a week on your road bike and you're slamming tons of hills, you're stressing your body to the point of, you know, this cardio activation that's like super intense, and it's hard to calm down from that. And your pain threshold goes way down and your sensitivity to pain goes way up. So when you have systemic inflammation and stress, you have heightened pain sensitivity as well, and this can definitely modulate that. Has shown to do that across the board. So the hormonal rhythm regulation as well. So DSIP doesn't blunt cortisol across the board. Instead, it normalizes the rhythm of cortisol release. So it's not, again, acting like a drug that's going to blunt the cortisol, because our bodies need cortisol. Like cortisol is actually it's crucial actually to the body to have cortisol rhythms, but this normalizes the rhythm of the cortisol release rather than having it spiked and releasing too much at night so that then you're wasted by noon the next day. And um, healthy cortisol peaks in the morning and declines at night. And DSIP appears to support that timing and restoration rhythm, not flattening it. So, again, a lot of the drugs that you take when you have overactive cortisol tend to blunt it and not just restore the rhythm, but they flatten it. And again, we need that cortisol balance. We just need it to be in the right rhythm and not out of whack.
It's about balance, right?
Not out of balance. Yeah, exactly. It's about balance. So you can kind of see here a 24-hour cortisol profile. So 6 a.m., cortisol's up, 9 a.m., 12 p.m., 3 p.m., 6 p.m. It dips. It should dip at night and then start coming back up a little bit at 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., right? So it's like this little wave. Um, Chronic stress, you can see what happens with chronic stress is you never actually get down to that low rhythm at 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. before it starts really coming back up again. So when we never reach that rhythm and our cortisol is slammed all the time, that's when we feel complete hormone dysregulation.
And also, there's
So
something that's interesting. I just wanted to point out, if you look at where our growth hormone pulse is, so happens to be at the lowest point of your cortisol.
exactly, exactly. Yep.
Just so
So
happens.
again, like we were talking about, when you can get the cortisol levels down, you can get in that rest and restore phase between that 10 and midnight period where that cortisol is the lowest. You're going to actually gain the most out of your natural growth hormone pulse between that 10 and midnight period.
Chris
So it,
had a great, or not Chris, sorry, Ryan had a great question. I don't know if we want to answer it now or did we want to build it maybe just a little bit later?
Sure. Yeah, let's answer it now.
All right. So
I
it's
can't stand right
combining DSIP with magnesium, um, L-threonate, 1,000 milligrams, or even 2,000 milligrams. Any benefit to that
now.
combo that you've seen?
Absolutely. Excuse me. So the magnesium, especially the L-threonate version, the magnesium L-threonate is the only actual magnesium that is shown to break the blood-brain barrier. So it's the only magnesium that actually shows to help lower cortisol rhythms during that time at night. So it's definitely a great adjunct to have. So if you wanted an amazing sleeping pill and a rest and restore sleeping combo, you could take magnesium L-threonate, DSIP, and Solanc all between like 8 and 9 p.m. And you're gonna sleep like a rock, and your body is gonna go through the best restore phase it's seen and felt in a long time. Because you're normalizing those rhythms, you're realigning the hormonal secretion with the natural circadian cycles, and you're allowing your body to actually get into that state where it can stay there. And every little thing isn't going to wake you up 17 times during the night. So you're going to actually get there and stay there for longer periods of time. Yeah, the magnesium L-threonate is the best magnesium to take during the night. Actually, it's pretty good to take during the day as well. It goes really well. Not in such high amounts, though. You can't take super high amounts during the day, or it will make you a bit sleepy. But it goes really well with a lot of nootropics, believe it or
Hmm.
not. I think because it does break the blood-brain barrier, so it goes really well with some max during the day. It goes really well with things like nootropics and adaptogens, nootropics like aniracetam paired with a magnesium L-threonate, um, L-theanine, and a couple of other things could be a really amazing nootropic stack for morning and midday.
That is fantastic.
So DSIP as an adaptogen. So actually, I talk about Dr. Trevor Bachmeyer all the time, right? So I listen to a lot of the stuff he says. He probably has done more research and pulls together more actual studies about peptides than anybody else that I've seen out there. And he frames DSIP as a neuropeptide adaptogen. Rather than forcing a specific state, it enhances the body's intrinsic ability to tolerate stress and recover efficiently, particularly in high performance contexts. So, again, this is for Josh and people who are like in high performance contexts that are stressing their bodies like to the maximum. So it increases the physiological threshold for stress, allowing for higher workloads without systemic collapse. So your stress tolerance actually goes up. And so what that means is you can stress the body higher without actually feeling the effects of the stress. So it's kind of like the pain modulation. You can have the same amount of pain in the
Mhm.
body. You're not gonna sense it as much. You have a higher threshold for it at that point. It accelerates the restoration of homeostasis after intense physical or mental exertion. It strengthens the organism's overall ability to bounce back from stressors rather than just masking the symptoms. So again, the systemic resilience is coming from actually getting to that rest and relax state. It's not masking symptoms the next day for you because you didn't get good sleep. Like I'm thinking about one particular thing right now, which is um it's escaping me right now. Um Alba, what do we take every morning when we don't sleep? When we take 10 grams of it? I don't know why I'm having a brain fart right now.
Hold on, I'm gonna let me unmute Alba.
Creatine. So I'm thinking
Okay.
about creatine. So everybody thinks creatine is just for muscles and muscle recovery and all of this stuff for, people who train in the gym a lot. And actually, in recent years, they've found that it is highly bioavailable in the brain. And if you get really crap sleep during the night, you can take 10 grams of creatine the next morning, and it has to be a high amount. But 10 grams of creatine will really set you straight. And I'm not sure by which mechanism that's working. I feel like it's got to be masking some of those symptoms in a way, because if you didn't get that recovery, that actual recovery from the stress, you're not actually working within systemic resilience at that point. You're sort of giving yourself a mask with it, and it does work quite well. I've used it many times. Um, Actually, recently I've been using it quite a bit, taking 10 grams every day just to see what happens. Um, I don't find that it helps regulate my sleep patterns at all, but it really does help you bounce back the next day when you didn't sleep well the night before. Just as a little side note for anybody who cares.
Actually, I care. That's great side note.
So, as an adaptogen, DSIP helps support consistent high level output by preventing that crash often associated with stimulants, right? So, it's allowing you to, through that systemic resilience and getting that rest and relax phase actually going, getting the cortisol rhythms down to where they should be during the right time so that they're not spiking in the wrong times. It's allowing you performance stability and giving you a high output, um, a consistent high output availability that you don't get with stimulants, because stimulants work for a certain amount of time and then you crash. It's just like coffee. Coffee is a great stimulant. It can actually be even quite nootropic if paired with things like L-theanine. I love coffee, but coffee can cause some serious nervous system dysregulation if overused. And DSIP definitely helps bring some of that back into balance. So, who is DSIP really for? It's not just for people who can't fall asleep. It's not it's not designed for people who can just, fall asleep. It was named delta sleep inducing peptide because of its ability to actually make you so sleepy and get to sleep, but it was really made for people who have physiological stress systems that are dysregulated, and it's preventing them from a natural transition into recovery modes. So again, we keep going back to that rest and recovery phase. So, executives, burnout professionals, high performers living in prolonged sympathetic dominance due to constant decision making and cognitive stress. So, this isn't even just about like overtraining athletes or competitors in the physical realm. This is about high level executives, people who are work 10, 12, 14 hours a day. They're always constantly thinking. Even when they go to bed, they can't turn it off because they're thinking about what they have to present the next day, thinking about the board meetings, thinking about all that stuff, right? So individuals with medically elevated baseline cortisol, systemic inflammation, or HPA axis dysregulation. What's that?
You
Oh,
guys, Ryan. I got you. We're good.
Okay. So, and that wired but not tired that we talked about, where your body feels exhausted, but your mind just can't let you get down to some actual restful sleep. So when you have surges of wakefulness at night, preventing that sleep onset, or when you do get tired and you go to bed, but then immediately your mind is back on again and you're up and down and up and down and up and down all night. This is really for people that deal with all of this sort of key factors here. So sympathetic overdrive, poor recovery matrix, and high cognitive load. So all of people who deal with all of those key indicators, DSIP is definitely for you. So DSIP versus sedatives. So sedatives override the brain and force GABA activity, right? So they force GABA pathways to shut down the central nervous system, overriding natural wakefulness signals. So DSIP is really restoring the physiology. It preserves the sleep architecture and does not impair the REM sleep. That's a major, it's a major distinction that we can put between how DSIP works and how sedatives or hypnotics work. So often sedatives will suppress the REM sleep and the slow wave sleep, leading to light sleep that isn't fully restorative. And they create a global dampening effect on the brain, often resulting in morning grogginess or hangover. Like we've all felt that, right? That central nervous system suppression in the morning when you just feel like brain foggy, even though you feel like you slept all night, but you just wake up groggy and you don't feel well. So this targets the root of that cause, the stress dysregulation, rather than just sedating the brain. So again, we're working on that the core issue rather than putting a mask on something, right? Because masks work for a very short amount of time before you have a complete central nervous system breakdown. And that goes for pain modulation, that goes for central nervous system modulation, that goes for sleep modulation, that goes for immune modulation, anything that we're talking about when we're talking about, let's say, pharmaceuticals versus something that is going to actually hit the root of the problem rather than like masking it. In this case, like a sedative. So it's the difference between masking the symptom and restoring the symptom. So the big reframe for DSIP is when sleep improves, it's not because of sedation, it's because of the underlying stress signaling has finally normalized. So the cortisol signaling is dampened and the hyperreactivity subsides, which leads to circadian rhythm timing realigning, hormonal peaks occurring at the right times. Again, that goes back to the cortisol, that goes back to the, the growth hormone peaks and pulses that are restorative. That goes back to recovery and the parasympathetic tone
Mhm.
increasing, allowing cellular repair. So, this is really important as well when we're talking about um, combining things like the the recovery and repair peptides, such as BPC 157 and TB 500. Those things work better when we can actually get into that parasympathetic phase as well. And when we can get that parasympathetic tone to increase, all of the other peptides, all of the other supplements, everything that we're using and putting in our bodies all work to their maximum.
True.
So deep restorative sleep occurs naturally as a downstream result. So that was the big reframe. Um, we have a lot of people ordering and using the DSIP, particularly just for sleep. And I just wanted to do this because I had started reading a lot about it, and I just really wanted to share with everybody all of these other things that it does and sort of reframe that the sleep improves because of these other things.
Well, the downregulation of stress, I don't think can be understated. Um, when we are engaging that parasympathetic nervous system in a more healthful way, I should say, it
Yep.
is absolutely going to have beneficial effects. That's why things like mindfulness meditations and things like that actually have clinically proven beneficial effects. But that is another way of balancing out your nervous system. I, I think adding DSEP to those practices as well is even going to have a greater effect because you're going to get
Yeah.
that incredible restorative sleep that so many of us desperately need, but we don't get.
Yeah. So
And
let's look in the chat here. So a couple people have been putting some stuff in the chat here.
we've been answering
Um,
them kind of as we've been going along.
yeah, Brooke said that Magtine also relaxes the muscles and allows for further restorative state. Absolutely. Magtine is awesome. So Magtine is actually that is magnesium L-threonate.
Oh, okay.
Um, there's actually a really rad product that I've been using, and I actually discovered it um, at the A4M show in December, the longevity
Nice.
show. And
Hmm.
there's a company called Quicksilver Scientific, and they make a magtein product, and it's loaded with phosphatidylcholine as well.
Oh, cool.
And that makes you super sleepy, and you get like really restorative sleep with that as well. Combined with the DSIP, it is an amazing sleeping pill, and you wake up feeling super recovered and relaxed.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, Lauren asks, is it better to take as a spray or an injection for DSIP? So I'm gonna say I would much rather take it as a spray, and here's why. The spray works absolutely amazingly, and it comes on in 20 minutes. If you take DSIP in a large dose as an injection, it's not going to hit you for 5 to 7 hours. So it's kind of like it's a lot easier to plan 20 minutes ahead of when you want to be asleep rather than like 5 to 7 hours and not knowing kind of exactly how it's going to hit. That's the nice thing about a lot of the bioavailable nasal sprays is that most of them are hitting in a much, much quicker window than what the injectables are doing. Like the injectable might actually be signaling, like it might be in its signaling half-life in the first 20 minutes or 2 hours, because most peptides have a 20 minute to 2 hour signaling half-life. Most of them, not all of them, but like the majority of them sit in that main window. But you might not feel the downstream effects of it for 5 to 7 hours, right? So I personally appreciate the DSIP as a nasal spray. Um, I used to only take two sprays because that makes me like pretty sleepy. But after learning about all of these restorative effects and nervous system dysregulation coming back to homeostasis, all of these other things and all these downstream effects, I've actually started taking like 4 sprays almost every single night, and I've been getting much, much better sleep. And I feel amazing in the morning when I wake up. Like I feel like I'm actually getting that real recovery at night,
That's fantastic.
which I've also been going back to the gym in a pretty heavy way, 3 times a week lately after quite an extensive break from that. So I feel like it's really helping me get back to the next workout feeling a lot more recovered than I was before as well.
So you're really noticing it in your post-workout recovery.
Absolutely. All right. Any other questions?
Let me check the Q&A as well, just in case somebody threw some stuff over there. Not right now. Now, I do have a question that I want to pose to the group. We've done several webinars. Some of you we've done that have been along uh, larger groups, basically, I'll say, along the lines of, oh,
Sorry, say that again. I was
oh,
reading
sorry.
Albert's
Sorry,
question.
there's Albo saying something about the slideshow and the PowerPoint because it shows a little band right across.
Oh, I think because it's off. Are you guys not seeing me now? I thought I turned
No,
it
no, we
on.
still see you. We still see you.
Okay.
Um, but no, shoot, now I just lost my train of thought. Um, where was I going with that? Oh, the question was, do you guys like, and just put the comments in the chat, more when we hone in on just one peptide and do what we did tonight? Went through DSIP from tip to stern, brought out some different ideas about a peptide that many of us already heard about, but had some misconceptions about. Um, would you guys like to see us focus in on one or two peptides when we do an episode? Or do you like when we talk about larger groups when recovery or like tonight, cool. Um,
And that doesn't
recovery,
that doesn't mean
metabolic.
that
Doesn't mean that we won't do it, but
and that doesn't mean we can't field other questions. If somebody has questions about
exactly.
any other peptides tonight, feel free to throw them out there. Um, I just wanted to kind of, we haven't really honed in on like one or two peptides. We've been doing like groups, we've been doing stacking, we've been talking about broader sort of
Exactly.
subjects.
That's what I was trying to get to. It wasn't too eloquent about it. But go ahead.
So Alba says, I would like to learn more about specific problems to treat it with peptides. For example, how to help people with ADHD. Okay, yeah, we could definitely do an episode on that.
And we're
Uh,
not treating anything. Remember that. It
Lauren
would
says
be
she's running to order DSIP.
I
She
am
said
too. I'm actually
she,
ready to get it for my wife.
she said she likes this style of education as well. Um, Brooke said she thinks it's great to talk about a peptide in whole when there's so much to talk about. Yeah. So I'd like to bring in melanotan too, also, and talk about that one and do a deep dive on that one in the coming weeks. Maybe not next week, but Devin says gut repair and SIBO. Yeah,
Okay.
we could do definitely an episode on that. There's a couple of different, actually quite a few peptides that can help um, reduce those symptoms and help with gut repair. Um, Randy says this is his first session he attended and he benefited immensely from the knowledge. Cool, glad you liked it, Randy.
Awesome. Thank
Um,
you.
cool. So it looks like people kind of like this style. So I think maybe in the future we will look to kind of create a presentation around, a particular peptide or maybe just a very small group of peptides and kind of do a deeper dive like we did tonight.
Yeah.
Um, Brooke says she has a client she's helping with SIBO now. It would be great to talk about something like that when we have a lot of cases we can compare. Absolutely.
That would be
Yeah.
fantastic because then that
And
expands everybody's
I
knowledge.
think I think this is going to continue to grow to that end, Brooke, as we get more and more people joining the call every week.
Yeah.
I think that we will have a little bit more crosstalk and we'll have a little bit more comparing like, hey, I had a couple clients, we did this compared to, hey, we did this protocol or we had this with it. Um, and I think, as time goes, the group will get bigger and we'll have a lot more comparative sort of trials or studies with our clients, if you will.
Correct. Well, and the group is already growing. We don't always have the same group of people that are showing up, but we have a good number of people that are frequenting the peptide forum on a weekly basis. And we really, our goal is to educate. I learned something. I hope that we're also um, providing good, solid information. That's a really our goal. And then spark your own juices to go and research and do more on your own as well. Because the stronger we get as individuals and we bring it back to the community, the stronger the community gets.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking from points of strength and truth as opposed to guesswork. And I still love what Chris said on our very first episode. Get away from the bro science. And there's plenty of real science. And
Yeah.
we can just talk
Tons.
about what we know, what we don't know.
And
Um,
we're gonna start bringing other people in as
absolutely.
guests as well. So it's not always just going to be Tony and myself.
Mhm.
To that end, I know Brooke and I have spoken about Brooke coming on as a guest panelist.
Would love it.
Um, Maybe Brooke, since you are helping a client currently with SIBO, maybe it would be great to maybe we bite that off in the next, coming couple weeks or month, and maybe you can enlighten us on that, on your protocol for that, how that's going, what you're doing, what's
Yes.
working, et cetera, et cetera.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. I would love to see what you're getting on from your results. Um,
She said, "Give me another month because we're just starting the second phase now." Okay, great.
Now, is
Great.
it going well? I mean, you're starting phase, you went through phase one, you're going to the second phase. Are you seeing progress in that
In that first
from
phase.
phase one going into the second phase? I'll even let you talk. Hold on, let me unmute you.
She said they just started with BPC-TB.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So, Yeah, this is actually a old professor of mine. Um, and we know he's diagnosed with SIBO. He's had it for like 3 years and they can't figure out what to do. So along with me having him research everything that I've researched, he made the decision to start with the BPC TB500, which is what we've been doing. And then we also made the decision we wanted to do a trial run with KPV. So we literally just started like KPV last night. So I want to see what happens after he's had a good cycle with KPV to be able to determine what's working.
You know who makes the Mag 10?
Yeah, Quicksilver Scientific.
There
Oh,
we
well, MAG-10 is just the abbreviated name of mag-threonate. I mean, I
Yeah,
think a lot
yeah.
of people make it.
They
Okay.
just make a really good one, and it's loaded with phosphatidylcholine, which I think that especially these days, your brain can't get enough choline. Um, and the phosphatidylcholine actually really helps bring that restorative, relaxative state as well. So I love that product. I've been using it. I've actually ordered more since the show. I bought a bunch at the show. That company's really good. They have some other good products as well that I bought that I've been loving.
Beautiful.
I've been using their cacao mint glutathione. Their glutathione is really good as well.
Nice.
Chris, is that the same brand that you brought that had the sprays?
The little pump, like the
Yeah,
little
yeah, yeah.
gel pumps. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I've been using their methyl, they have like a methyl complex as well, which has
Hmm.
got like folate and methyl B12. Everything's methylated. I have MHTFR, so I have to take those methylated those vitamins methylated. So I've been really enjoying their products. Like not to be a spokesperson or anything, but they make awesome products. They don't
It
pay me,
was
but they should, right?
right. Now, Devin, you just asked about BPC and KPV. Did you want us to possibly dig deeper into those as a combo? I'm going to let you talk, Devin. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. If
Devin
you
asked oral or injectable. Um, oral doesn't really work. So just to set the record straight across the board with oral peptides, there's some adjacent things to peptides such as, let's say, dihexa or 5-amino-1-MQ, which aren't actually peptides. They're larger molecules that can work really well ingested. But by and large, peptides do not work. You're lucky if you get 2 to 3% out of, let's say, BPC TB or KPV, any of those, if you take them orally, like as a pill. Like your stomach acid destroys them immediately on contact. Like they
Okay.
just don't work. If any of them get through and actually survive the stomach acid, the lining of the stomach and the mucosal layer in the gut doesn't allow for any sort of penetration or uptake. So you're really super seriously lucky if you get 2 to 3% out of an oral peptide.
So I've heard for digestive issues that oral BPC and oral KPV can be effective because those can withstand the digestive breakdown.
A lot of people say they are, but there's actually no studies published that
Hmm.
I've seen that actually prove that they are, and actually everything that I've seen proves that they aren't. So
Okay.
the now that being said, a nasal spray could also be used orally. Like our nasal sprays are super bioavailable in the nasal cavity by way
Mhm.
of epithelial layer loosening by an ionic like an ionic system that we've patented. So where a typical nasal spray works about 20% as well as an injectable, ours are working about 75 to 85% as well as an injectable. And those also work on the epithelial layer of your skin. It also works on the mucosal lining of the mouth. So our nasal sprays, you can actually twist on an oral spray top, or you can even just use the nasal spray top and you can put it under your tongue. And it is quite effective. The only problem being orally versus mucosally when it's a spray. The difference is we salivate. And when we
Yeah.
salivate, we tend to swallow a lot. And so anytime you're swallowing it, it's gone. It's toast. It's not working. It really needs to stay under the tongue, needs to really stay on the gums and in the lining of the cheeks in that mucosal layer to be like for a decent amount of time, like 10 to 20 minutes to be properly effective at that, let's say 75 to 85% um versus an injectable being, let's say, 100% effective. Yeah.
Okay. So the injectable would be better than
Yeah.
oral, even for digestive
Yeah.
issues. Okay.
So Randy says, since discussion is on routes, do sublingual peptides actually work as a gel? I think that 100% depends on the technology being used in the gel. So again, I think most nasal sprays, which you could also use as a mouth spray, work about 20 to 25% as well as an injectable. Um, we're just lucky that we've been working with a lab to develop all of our peptides over the last 3 years, which their sole focus has been developing this drug delivery system of the Protixa ion technology. And we're just really lucky that it happens to protect the peptides. It encapsulates them in 8 nanometer um, encapsulated balls. So, like the chains stay small enough that they actually can cross that epithelial membrane layer. And with the ionic technology that we're using, that really, really tight layer actually momentarily releases to allow for that 8 nanometer particles to actually get through. And then there's also a nanolipid component of it that actually protects the molecules so they don't break down and the peptide chains don't break down until they get to the receptors where they need to. So there's quite a few different things at play there. That being said, our lab is actually currently working on a gummy delivery system, believe it or not. And it's going to be so the technology is such that if it's heated, the peptide chains break down. So what we're working on is a gummy that's like a gusher, where the liquid gets actually pushed inside of the already made gummy. Like, so there would be like a hollowed out place in the gummy. It gets injected with the
Compound.
basically like the solution, which contains the Protixa ion, which has that ionic technology to open that epithelial layer momentarily and allow for that maximum absorption. So we are working on, I guess you would call it an oral delivery, but it's still going to be like a mucosal delivery because
Yeah.
you would chew it up and it would still be needed to kind of like keep it in the mouth for a little while to be maximally effective. Yeah. Devin says, are nootropic peptides best as sprays compared to other peptides? I think so. I definitely think so because you're putting it right there near the brain. Many, many studies show that things entering the nasal cavity effervesce and cross the blood-brain barrier, especially things that are well known to already. The neuropeptides like Solonc, Samax, I think actually Epitalon and Thymulin work quite well as nasal sprays, and they also work immediately. So one great thing about the sprays is you can kind of tell the efficacy of the spray because it works immediately. Like for instance, if you're talking about something like PT-141 and oxytocin, if you take that as an injection, it's going to hit you like 5 to 7 hours later. And it might be different for different people. Whereas if you take it as a spray, it's going to hit you in between 25 and 35 minutes. So it's like a much smaller window. And the difference between this person and the other 10 people that might be taking it in a trial might be 5 or 10 minutes difference. It's not going to be hours different across different people the way it hits you. So I think there is quite a few different pluses for quite a few of the peptides as sprays versus injectables. Now, that being said, there's some that are always just going to work better as an injectable. It's kind of per peptide. Devin also says he'd be interested in hearing about a forum on detoxification and immune activation. Absolutely. Yeah.
Writing that one down.
Yeah, we could do one on redox and immune activation. We get
Got
some
repair in the SIBO and then the
KPV, some copper. We could talk about a bunch of great things. Randy says, "Thank you, Brooke. It was actually to be absorbed under the tongue versus check, as it wouldn't stick to your cheek for check for absorption." I think he probably meant cheek.
yeah.
Meant cheek, yeah.
Hey, so Tony, am I still unmuted?
You still are.
Okay. So I just wanted to use an example to kind of help people think through nasal sprays versus injection. It's a lot like what Chris said. When do you want the onset? You think about something like maybe like your retatrutide, your BPCs, something like that that's causing a systemic approach where you want it in the body like for a long period of time to accomplish some end goal, then injectables seem to be probably the better option. But if you need something to work pretty quickly and get a more of an immediate response, the nasal sprays in most cases are better. So the best example I can give people that would probably associate it with something probably more in the pharmacology world would be something like a Zofran. A lot of people know
Hmm.
Zofran for using for nausea. So if you're in the hospital or a doctor gives you Zofran for nausea, obviously you need that to onset pretty daggone quickly. Most of the Zofrans that we dispense in a pharmacy these days are what we call ODT, which means they dissolve under the tongue. So when I said the buccal mucosa, you don't want it to go through first pass. First pass means you swallow it, it
Goes
goes in
in.
the stomach, it has to go through the liver or the kidneys to exert effect. If you can spray something in the nose and it gets absorbed through the nasal passages, or you use something that goes through the cheek or under the tongue in the buccal or the mucosal membranes,
You
then it
avoid the
passes
first
straight to the
pass.
brain.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So the brain peptides, back to Devin's question. The brain peptides, the
Thank you, sir.
neuropeptides, absolutely. I think Salonc, Samax, those thymulin, epitalon, the pineal peptides, all of those, I believe, in my opinion, actually work better as a nasal spray.
All righty. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are 7 minutes past the hour. Do we have any last questions?
Devin asked, "What's the best way to test for active cancer before starting peptides, just as a precaution?" Actually, just getting a cancer screening. There's a basic blood test for a cancer screening. You can go to any. It's a basic panel. Actually, it's not even like a massive panel you need for that. You can get that done at any place that draws blood. And actually, there was a really great post in the last, I think it was yesterday. I sent it to a few people. I don't know if I sent it to you, Brooke, but there was a post that Bachmeyer put about cancer and peptides, and it just blows apart the industry's theory that, peptides could metastasize or spur on any type of cancer at all, and actually shows that like BPC 157 and TB 500 both would actually do exactly the opposite and would actually fight cancer. And he goes through like multiple reasons why. I haven't watched it enough to like retain it all perfectly to talk about it here yet, but if you guys follow Trevor Bachmeyer, look at his post from yesterday on Instagram. I think I sent it to a couple of people. I wonder if I could actually put it in the chat here. Actually, let me see if I could put it in the chat. Just a second. I
Awesome.
Chris,
sent
I
it.
think he did one on cancer and Retta, and I think cancer and BPC or something. But I think his
Yeah.
his association is that, because everybody says BPC because it causes angiogenesis. But I think what he's saying is BPC and things like that can cause angiogenesis, growth of new blood supply, but it only causes growth of blood supply of organized cells, where cancer is disorganized cells. And
Right.
so therefore it doesn't contribute to unorganized growth potential.
So I just put it there in the chat, in the webinar chat, for anybody who wants to take a look at that. I was sending it to a couple people because I've had quite a few people with that have just gone through stomach cancer or skin cancer or a couple of other things recently asking me and being a little bit afraid um, to try different peptides or try any peptides on fear of, oh, would this make cancer grow or cancer come back again or something like that. So
Mhm.
he just kind of dispels a bit of the mystery and talks about it in a real scientific manner. I would suggest anybody interested in that watch that little video. It's like 3 minutes long. The Prenuvo scan would be great for sure. The Galleri test is much cheaper, but the Prenuvo scan would be great. Yeah. I think the Prenuvo scans are about $1,000. Those are kind of expensive to answer Devin's question.
Okay.
Cool. I think that's a wrap for tonight. 6:11 sounds like a good time to
Yeah.
the basic cancer test is just a basic screen. You can get a basic cancer screening in a blood test. I don't know if there's I don't know the exact markers off the top of my head to test for, but you can ask for a general cancer screening in the blood in a blood test. Like you can go to any what are the places that draw your blood called?
Oh, LabCorp.
LabCorp or any one of those. Yeah.
There's another one. There's another big one. I just
There's
can't.
probably at the just to
Quest.
answer
That's
that
it.
question, Quest, yeah. To answer that question, I did notice one of the big things actually this year at the A4M show, the longevity show that we went to. One of the biggest things that I noticed that there was like a ton of booths of new companies with emerging technologies that are like pre-cancer screening, like know that you're going to have cancer long before you have cancer, and like these markers lead to this, and like there's a lot of companies out there. You might want to actually just Google that or even chat GPT. Um, what companies are offering like genetic tests or gene marker tests that are showing like pre-cancer, you know, because they have the ability of actually like screening, pre-cancerous now, showing that like, hey, you'll most likely be getting this type of cancer because you have this, and this genetic disposition or markers happening in your body.
And
And
if you
that way
don't,
you'll know, hey, I can do this, and this to reverse those markers and stuff.
it gives you the ability to do something about it.
Yeah. Randy says, from what I've learned, 2026 will be the start of AI designed peptides, advanced mitochondrial targeting, precision CRISPR gene editing, and will transform healthcare from reactive to proactive. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're gonna see concierge medicine go through the roof. You're gonna see proactive rather than reactive be like the next wave of healthcare for sure. Um, I think it's going to live sort of like outside like the regular medical industry at first for the first, I would say 3 to 5 years before by and large medical industry adopts that sort of pathway. But yes, that's absolutely coming. I mean, we're already seeing it. I mean, peptides themselves are extremely targeted. Like each peptide is very extremely targeted in like one or two things that it's doing. So it's like, yeah, like Brooke said, pharma won't let it be mainstream.
There's too much
So
money in pharma.
yeah. And I mean, eventually it will, because I mean, the whole pharmaceutical structure of things is starting to crumble beneath us, and we're all seeing it. As we're seeing many other things in life crumble beneath us. I think old systems are on their way
We're
out
going
and
away.
new systems are on their way in, and hence the rise of peptides, these super targeted things that are more natural in nature. And I say that, I mean, they're peptides are synthesized, so they're not natural, but what peptides are is just signals. you're just signaling things, and those are already signals that exist in the body. You're just sending little emails and text messages to your, receptors on cell faces, telling them to upregulate or downregulate or get back to work or like calm down or whatever, whatever that specifically
Mhm.
targeted peptide is doing. But again, very targeted.
But to the pharma, uh, unfortunately, I believe pharma will end up getting into the space as well. They already have with the GLPs, and I think it'll continue.
Yeah.
Um,
And actually we can thank them a bit for that, you know. I mean,
100%.
Lilly and company, as much as you want to bag on them, and we do want to bag on them, as much
For
as
sure.
you do, um, they're the ones that developed all the GLPs. And to be honest, I think retatrutide is a fantastic formulation. It's a fantastic um chain of peptides that is doing so many other things other than what they actually developed it for. Like the
Mhm.
phase 3 trials are just showing so many things across the board, a downturn in chronic pain in like 78% of participants. I mean, so many
Fatty liver
different
disease.
things. What?
Fatty liver disease.
Fatty liver disease. I mean, I think we're going to see that it's going to help reverse, type 3 diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's, these things. Um, Again, because many of these things start with three basic metabolic breakdowns, and insulin resistance being one of those,
There you go.
glucose resistance, uptake resistance, and sensitivity. Again, these basic metabolic breakdowns are basically the start of all of these diseases that humanity has been plagued with over the past, recent years. And I think that not that retatrutide is this magic bullet against everything, but I think it's a lot more than a weight loss compound
Mhm.
for sure. I think that weight loss happens to just be a byproduct of actually getting other systems in check.
It's like DSIP in a lot of
It's
ways.
like DSIP, yeah. Again, the main symptom of it, or the main, let's say, side effect of it or effect of it, is a downstream effect, or
Mhm.
a downstream effect of a cascade of other things happening, right?
Mhm.
So So Lauren says she'd love to learn about microdosing Retta for autoimmune. Yeah, so we will
Mm.
get into we'll definitely do something about that, because I've been getting that from a lot of people lately. Like, hey, I want to microdose my Retta. I don't like the way it makes me feel when I take too much at a time. And well, we'll leave that for another time. We'll leave that for another time.
Yeah,
It's
because we could go off
18
into a
minutes after
tangent.
the hour. Yeah, exactly. But
All
yes,
righty.
thank you, Lauren. We will get into microdosing retatrutide specifically for autoimmune um, in the coming weeks.
All righty, everybody. Well, thank you once again for joining us on tonight's episode of the Peptide Forum. We look forward to having everybody back on again next week. Um, and I missed my opportunity to tease next week because I don't have that right in front of me.
What are we doing next week?
That is a fantastic question. I think it's regenerative.
Regenerative. Okay.
Yeah, because we bounced that one from this week um for the DSEP because that just it seemed to fit
Felt
from our
right.
discussions from last week. So
Yeah.
regenerative, basically peptides and regenerative, I don't want to say medicine, but regenerative properties of peptides and the ones that you can use to help um, recover and regenerate your body. So that will be next. That will be
Which is
next
like
week.
all of them.
Right. I mean, I kind of left the door open pretty wide for that one. After the following week, we're going to get more targeted. I do have some of your ideas, so don't be surprised if in the middle of March you're going to see some of these gut repair, detoxification. I see where is going to be in our future. Um, so do keep an eye out for those. We'll also be sending out, you're going to notice we're going to have some more graphics and some more things on our invites, so they'll look a little bit more lively. So you guys can share those as well with anybody that you know that would be interested in learning more about peptides or could also contribute to the group and add their body of knowledge. Uh, like I said at the beginning, the more we all learn as a group, the stronger we are together. So I want to thank everyone for participating and have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next week. Ciao.
Peace,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye.